There we go. Good. So, welcome everybody to another exciting professional development opportunity with our friends from Lucid for Education. As you can see, we've got their names written on there, but Justin and Brittany are coming to us from various different locations. So, we're very excited, though, to have them with what I think is one of the most exciting add-ons for Google Docs and whatnot. So, in Google Drive. So, we're really happy to have everybody with us today. If you have any questions, you're welcome to open up your mics and ask, because our audience isn't too big today. And there'll also be a Q&A portion at the end as well. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Justin and Brittany. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. And hello, Ohio educators, and welcome to our Lucid webinar. My name is Justin Hibbard. I'm a former teacher and EdTech director, and currently a regional sales manager for Lucid.
Hi, nice to meet you all. I'm Brittany Davis. I'm also a former educator and actually native of Ohio from Columbus area, and currently the operations manager for Lucid for Education. So glad to be with all of you today. Over the past 10 years, Lucid has helped millions of people and businesses too visualize their data so they can accelerate understanding to drive innovation.
And so over time, LucidChart and LucidPress have gained these accolades, like being the #1 most downloaded Chrome extension, used in 99% of the Fortune 500 companies, 20 million users worldwide, 6 million of those which are educators. But here's the truth. As a former educator, and both of us former educators, we know that you don't care about stats or even about the software. You care about solving your problems.
From our personal experience and our experience too, talking with educators around the country, these are some of the common challenges we hear over and over. There are so many tech tools already, right? In fact, many of the ones that we often have don't get used, and they don't get used because they seem irrelevant or difficult to use.
Meanwhile, you attend professional development, which talks about education best practices and strategies, and you try to put these into practice. And research says that you spend an average of 7 hours each week looking for relevant instructional materials, so you can put those best practices in the classroom.
And then when you finally find a relevant tool, you get pricing and we throw our hands up in the air, right? Because we don't have budget for it. We can't see everyone right now, some, but I'm sensing that people are nodding their heads. No wonder there's such a problem with teacher burnout across the nation. So hopefully we can help. Today we want to talk to you about two tools, LucidChart and LucidPress.
But you know what? The last thing you really want to do is sit through a presentation that walks you through where to click or how to drag and drop a particular tool.
Exactly. So really, we want to talk about practical ways that you can implement high achievement strategies in your classroom and how LucidChart and LucidPress can make that easier. And it doesn't matter if you're in elementary, middle, high school, or even a professor in higher education. This applies to learners of all levels and all subject matters.
And we'll show you some of the ways we're supporting teachers so you can stop spending 7 hours looking for relevant information and spend less time setting up your lesson and more time helping students create, collaborate, communicate, and think critically.
Which, we probably all agree, are the reasons that first convinced us to want to be a teacher.
And just as a side note, everything we're showing you here is done in LucidChart or LucidPress. We're big proponents of taking our own medicine that way.
So today we'd like to share a story with you. And this story is actually about a school district in Connecticut. A school district was like you, wanting to transform the way students learned, to make it relevant, and to engage students in the learning as the creators. Since Connecticut sometimes deals with hurricanes as school's starting, a 5th grade class decided to study them. At the start of this process, the teacher built this graphic organizer that you see right here in LucidChart. We all know that through Marzano's meta-analysis of those 100 independent studies, using graphic organizers to assimilate knowledge yields a 27% gain in academic achievement.
Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate. Brittany, couldn't teachers just do this in another program? I mean, if you think about the SAMR model, this is just substitution, right? I mean, what's the advantage of throwing another tool in the mix to create this type of graphic organizer? Personally, this reminds me of my teachers when they would use their smartboards merely as a tool to advance their PowerPoint slides.
You're right, Justin. I've heard this referred to kind of as a digital pencil, this idea that I could essentially do the same thing on a piece of paper with a few benefits, like avoiding the challenge of deciphering student handwriting, right? Or erasing to reorder my thinking.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, my handwriting is atrocious, so I think my teachers would appreciate me using the digital thing like this. However, because the teachers wanted to use technology to modernize learning, they then introduced students to the ways that they could augment the graphic organizer. Students began to embed images or videos. After all, seeing a video of a hurricane really helps you understand how powerful these storms can be.
And we know that 90% of the information transferred to our brain is visual. We can actually process visuals in 1/10 of a second. So we can consume information much more rapidly. But still, what the teachers told me was that they were wanting to switch to more inquiry-based learning so they could transition into the role of a facilitator who helped empower a student with voice and choice.
And that's when they started using LucidChart in transformative ways. Instead of students stopping at consuming the information, students began to build their own models of hurricanes, mapping out the radius of a hurricane's impact, which moves them from just remembering and understanding information to the higher order thinking Bloom's taxonomy outlines by applying their learning in order to create.
To actually redefine this experience, the teachers then posed a question to the students. Why are we, Connecticut, impacted by hurricanes? So in groups, students researched that and built a model of the entire hurricane system, beginning over here on the right in the Sahara Desert, if you can see that, with the goal that students would truly understand this entire process and its impact ultimately on their state. What was important is that the students in this group were working simultaneously together here on their areas of interest. They had each individually chosen the parts of this process they wanted to explore, and then were co-developing the model at the same time.
So going back to that SAMR model, what we're showing here is redefinition. We're taking the technology of LucidChart and achieving something that really can't be done with a piece of paper. Multiple students working in real time. Not to mention, if we were to print this out, this would be the size of a wall. Because LucidChart is a blank, open canvas, it grows to the size of our thinking.
And not only were they collaborating with students in real time, they were also sharing this with the teacher so that she could go in and give instant feedback.
And feedback was such a frustrating thing for me as a teacher personally. It would take me so long to grade essays and projects, and I would make meticulous notes. But by the time I got it back to the students, it had been a week or two and sometimes longer. But then the whole thing is by then out of sight, out of mind. I would have loved to give them instantaneous feedback so they could learn from it and implement it right away.
And when schools talk about career readiness, isn't that feedback element so important?
I mean, absolutely. Think about an apprentice mechanic, for example. They don't just rebuild a car engine and then show the boss when they're done. What if they missed an important step, like a screw somewhere or a belt or a piston, and now have to redo everything? Personally, continuous, instantaneous, informative feedback is a real part of anyone's career.
As we looked at this hurricane diagram that the students produced, we actually spoke with a professor who we were working with, and he explained the power of this type of thinking, which he refers to as systems thinking. It's what NGSS, or the Next Generation Science Standards, require at their third highest level, but it's also the most challenging to facilitate in the classroom. This professor pointed out that this is actually the way scientists think, though. So when students implement systems thinking, they're learning in much more authentic ways. Seeing this entire system mapped out, combined with the iterative practice they went through, is the skill that we know students need to be developing. They need to be the problem solvers who can look at the systems in our world, right? Analyze for those inefficiencies, find improvements, restructure, and continue to adapt to the changing world.
Perhaps my favorite part of this story, Brittany, is what happened next. The elementary students presented this LucidChart hurricane diagrams to their parents at a back to school night, and the parents were amazed. They talked about how invested their students were, how they deeply understood facts and the whole hurricane system, and how excited these students were to make suggestions on how to be ready for their community. They were using what they learned to try to contribute to their community, which is exactly the goal of public education.
So this is an example from fifth graders from elementary school. But what's cool is that it's so relevant in higher grades as well. Here's an example from a high school robotics team in California. When they found out they were making it to the regionals competition, they wanted to up their game. So they went on and Googled flowcharting technology and found LucidChart, where they began to map out the controls process for their robot. One challenge they had faced before was being able to clearly show the dependencies or the conditions. For example, what would happen if their robot picked up a blue square instead of a red one? They found easy ways to show that flow in LucidChart, and they ended up winning the competition award for best controls. When the judges came to talk to them about it, they told them specifically how impressed they were, not only with their controls, but with the clarity of communication, their ability to share with the audience what was happening with their robot in their LucidChart map.
Another high school class wanted to design an app in their technology class. And so they used LucidChart to map it out and then shared that with local engineers who made suggestions. Then they actually built it and released it in the App Store. Again, formative learning.
Now, if you're wondering where the phone shapes came from, LucidChart has a built-in shape library. So you can incorporate wireframes, mobile phone shapes, circuit diagrams, mind maps, org charts, floor plans, Venn diagrams. This is really a key feature. Many people are trying to do this in something like Google Slides or Google Docs, and the students spend more time trying to create it than actually doing the work of building the app.
And speaking of floor plans, I can't begin to tell you how many world language teachers I've heard that have students do floor planning and then label their floor plans in the target language. And exactly to your point, so many of them point out how LucidChart saves them a ton of time. So the students are spending less time painstakingly creating and manipulating shapes and more time labeling in the target language, which is the goal of the assignment anyway.
All of these examples show how LucidChart can be an essential tool that's really helping promote career readiness. What the students did with the app is the exact same way that we know industry is working. In fact, one of our corporate customers, they're named Dealer Inspire, wanted to build an AI chatbot named Anna, they named her Anna, for auto dealership websites to interact with customers. They knew how to integrate it with their API, but they didn't know how to tackle building the dialogue flows to make sure that Anna could handle the myriad customer interactions she would experience and know what to say. So they diagrammed their algorithms here in LucidChart and brought her to life.
This type of thinking is needed in every subject and grade. So in a middle school, they also wanted to engage students in relevant learning as they studied the American Revolution. Historically, the unit involved students plotting the events of the Revolution on a timeline, which could have its benefits. Emergent bilinguals or English language learners could use visuals to demonstrate their understanding of the content, even if they haven't developed the CALPS, the cognitive academic language proficiency, to express that mastery. They could also link to primary sources, which is an important standard in this grade.
But the teachers knew they wanted to go beyond this. Like we've been talking about, they really were focusing from just substituting one tool for another to redefining the learning experience. So again, they started with a question. They asked, why did we win the Revolutionary War? Because we all know that when you look at the facts, you know that on paper it seems impossible. We were the underdogs. We should not have won. So that's where the students, in groups of 4, chose different factors of the revolution that interested them the most, or aspects of it, and began to map out what they were learning in real time, again, collaborating here together. And as this web grew, they started communicating in search of the similarities and common threads in this map. They could color code, change the lines to sort through their information, to analyze it, and to search for the related components. Do you know what they discovered is the reason the colonists won the revolution?
I'll tell you, I don't know. I mean, our family is watching the John Adams series right now, and in our house, the Hamilton soundtrack is on nonstop. So looking at this concept map, it makes me realize how lopsided the war was. It's kind of like that song in Hamilton, how it goes, we were outgunned, outmanned, outnumbered, outplanned.
Exactly. The students realized that as they were building this, but the visualization of the information led them to one conclusion. They came back to their teacher and said, the only thing we can see emerge is a sense of providence. We believed we were destined to win and we had the right to our own country. Interesting, right? But it didn't actually stop there. Once the students shared their conclusion with the teacher, they said, hey, by the way, can we ask you a question? Where were the women? None of the sources we investigated mentioned the women, but they had to be there, right? If husbands were off fighting, who was keeping the farms running? So they actually had to research even more, and it was their curiosity driving their learning. They then used that to create a presentation for a local historical society and advocate for educational materials about women of the American Revolution to be added to the sites.
So up to this point, we've spent a lot of time talking about LucidChart, but I want to take some time to focus on LucidPress. We've shown how LucidChart can help students critically think and make connections with complex information. LucidPress is a way to present knowledge in compelling ways. We've seen example after example where students use LucidPress to create posters, infographics, images, newspapers, ways that they share that information with their communities with the same real-time collaborative functionality that we see in LucidChart. We hear all the time how schools would like to give students more opportunity to demonstrate their learning outside of just creating slide presentations. LucidPress gives students so many different avenues of creating visually engaging materials.
However, I want to show you a little trick here. Let's take a look at this enormous concept map by a medical student. Let's say this person had to make a presentation to their class. They could click on the slide tool over here on the right, capture the area where they want to present, and LucidChart automatically turns it into a slide. The power of LucidChart is that instead of being confined to a limited frame, which would break up our information, we can create a concept or systems map to see the connections and relationships. And so instead of having to force this information we're learning and put it into two different slides, we can see the big picture and all the ways that the ideas connect, but focus in on specific areas of the map in a way that's really easy to present to an audience.
So I imagine there are some educators watching this and pretty excited about how they can drive student-centered, authentic learning in the classroom. But I imagine there are others that feel overwhelmed. They're wondering, how do I even get started with this? At the beginning of this presentation, we mentioned how teachers are overwhelmed with finding materials and getting the lessons set up so they can spend more time teaching and less time preparing to teach. What are some ways we can help educators do this, Brittany?
If you go to our website, lucidforeducation.com, you'll see something called Assignment Creator. There are over 500 templates made by educators. You can sort by grade level, subject matter, type, and skills you're focusing on. You'll see there are templates for LucidChart as well as LucidPress.
So if I wanted to get started with the Venn diagram, so we could do a comparison and contrast exercise, I can just search for Venn diagrams right here and pick one and share it with my students. One thing we should note is that some of our templates are available only with our education premium license. They have this crown here in the corner. However, if you're looking to try using LucidChart and LucidPress, you can do so much even just with our free license, and you can sign up here right on the Lucid for Education website.
In LucidPress, you'll also find a lot more templates. Some are free, all included with our education premium license. So if you want to create a poster or a newspaper or student magazine, we've even seen yearbook, you can get help here and get started with the templates.
For those of you using an LMS, integration is essential. So you can easily push this out to your students and collect assignments. You'll be happy to hear that Lucid has a sweet LTI integration with Google Classroom, Canvas, and Schoology.
Justin, can you share with us how we could actually get started on this?
I'd be happy to. So if you go to lucidforeducation.com, as I mentioned, you can sign up for a LucidChart or a LucidPress account. If you'd like a demo for your school or to inquire about pricing, if you just click this Contact Us button here at the top, you can fill out this form and we'll reach out to you. or you can call us at this number right here, 888-875-1062.
That wraps up our presentation. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Love being with Ohioans. Does anyone have any questions for us?
I'm going to jump in with one. You did share with us a little bit about the paid and the free version. What are the limitations on the free side of the program?
Yeah, good question, Paul. So for the free version, there is a document limit. I believe it's 10 documents. So if you wanted to have more than 10, you would either have to delete some and then create new ones, or you would have to move to the paid account. There's a 150 megabyte limit per person. Again, that might be fine with LucidChart. When you get into LucidPress and you're adding a lot of images and creating like a magazine or something like that, you might run into limits there. I believe there may be a page limit in LucidPress, so you can't create something beyond a certain amount of pages. But there's and then of course some of the templates as well. But there's a lot there in the free version that can definitely get you going, trying it out, working with students. We have a number of teachers that use the free version exclusively. Now, if you do the paid version, that includes LMS integration, single sign-on, implementation, and virtual trainings all included. And then the storage size is 5 gigs per user, and that's a shared storage. So if you have, like, for example, 100 users, that's 500 gigs. That's a lot of storage. And so you wouldn't have any issue there. And of course, all of the templates, all the shape libraries, everything like that's included.
I'm going to keep jumping in here because I've used the program quite a bit. So one of the things I think is really powerful with it is in my previous district, we had made the move from PCs to MacBooks. And so we lost the ability of being able to use Microsoft Publisher. And that was where LucidPress, or not just, yeah, LucidPress came in to be that something. It would be a great turnaround for the district for being able to use that this format, because again, it had everything that the teachers were used to having for being able to create their flyers and their programs, but then having the collaboration tools built into it really made it take it to that next level. So I believe all those are still in there, as almost all of them are in there in the free version of it, but there's some real powerful pieces to that program I wanted to just share.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think the other thing too is, this is a web-based program, so it doesn't matter what device you're using. We have a lot of schools that are on Chromebooks and they can't use things like Apple Pages or Microsoft Publisher, or even some of the Adobe tools. And so this really does allow them to do it online. It's a very easy to use interface and easy to use tool. And I can even just kind of pull it up here so you can see. So we take this magazine here. You'll see that it looks very similar to different interfaces that you're used to once this loads. Very much a WYSIWYG editor, but with some powerful features like the ability to lock down certain elements. One of the things that we find, and this is something, we have students working on a project, or maybe the school is wanting to do a magazine. Maybe they send out a newsletter, but what happens is you have one person who knows how to use Adobe InDesign, and everyone sends them their articles in a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word because they're afraid of, messing out the layout. Well, inside of LucidPress, we can go in here. For example, let's take this. We'll go in here and we can lock down the format, but keep the content unlocked so that everyone has an opportunity to update it. It gives everyone a chance. It definitely lightens the load for that primary editor, but it also allows everyone to participate and collaborate together. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm going to ask one more because I'm going to monopolize everything here because, again, this is a great program that I enjoy. If we can go back to the templates there, I noticed, and I never saw this one before. Maybe it's just because I'm just never very noticed it. You had the social media blocks over to the left. What are how are those, and what are those kind of designed for?
So these are designed for social media posts. So, for example, and they're formatted to that size. So if you wanted to do, hey, we want to create an Instagram post, these are all formatted to fit that Instagram format, that kind of more square format. And then you can use these templates. So you can change it however you'd like.
I have a question. Can you walk me through maybe, or tell me a little bit more about how you would go about getting accounts for your students? I guess I didn't quite catch that part, but if you could just give me a little bit more information about that.
Sure. So if you're doing the free version, you'll just have the students sign in. They can sign in with their Google account if you're using. And actually, I'll take you to that. Let me give you an example here. If we go to lucidpress.com and we say sign up, and we do a free user here. So you can use your Google or Office 365 account, or just sign up with a username, an email, and a password. So you can do that.
Justin, I'm going to interrupt you real quick because we're still seeing the Lucid for Education page.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. Okay, sorry. I opened up a different browser. So if you click on, this is not gonna work because I'm logged in. But if I log out here, so now can you see it now? So you can sign in with Google or Office 365 or your Yahoo account, or you can use an email address to sign in. So you just have the students do that. Now, if you purchase with us, we would do an authentication. So you would have a single sign-on authentication. All your users would be in there, so they wouldn't need to create their own accounts.
And if I'm correct, Justin, if a student or a teacher went to Google Drive and then went to More, and then LucidPress and LucidChart are options there as well, which would then walk them through the sign-in process. Is that correct?
I believe so. Any other questions?
You mentioned that it's an ed primary license. Are there other type of like licensures or account types that you guys have available, and what would they be used for?
Say that part one more time.
You said this is specifically for the education premium license, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like other levels or tiers or different types of licenses or things that educators might be interested in, and how are they different?
So there are, well, the education license is it's just a different different pricing than our corporate license. So you get the same version of LucidPress, you get the same version of LucidChart, whether you're in corporate or you're in education. It's not like we change it at all. The difference is the pricing and what's included. So for K-12, it's heavily discounted, and it includes both LucidChart and LucidPress as together as a license. Whereas in every other space, in corporate, if someone wanted to purchase a license, they would be paying a lot more, and they would and they would only get either LucidChart or LucidPress, or they would pay for both of them.
So so Justin, with that pricing structure there, let's say a museum or an organization did have the education package there. Where does the the rules kind of state. So if I create something as the pro owner and I share it with all my students, are they under that restriction as well, or do they fall under my category as I'm building my docs? And I think that more importantly falls under the restriction of the size of the doc.
I believe it's the primary user has it stays with them. So it's dependent on that, the person that creates the doc, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, similar to how Zoom and Zoom Pro licenses work. So if I'm with my Pro account, as users come in and connect to my conference, they have all they don't have to worry about time restrictions or anything like that, because it's the Pro end is starting it off. So yeah, it sounds like it's the same format there.
I believe that's correct. And Brittany, feel free to chime in if I'm saying anything.
Yeah, that's right. Shared docs don't count against like whatever storage you have. Mm-hmm. If someone else shares it with you, right, Paul? So saying like the person who created it. Yeah, you're right.
Any other questions?
Well, I think that's what we have for today. So Justin and Brittany, thank you so much for connecting with us. I'm going to just go ahead and up your sharing there real quick, and there we go. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today for our program, and we hope to see everyone online again in the near future. I'll go ahead and turn the recording off.
Thank you all.